Hello, hello, my lovely seekers and finders. Welcome to the Way of Truth number 35. And this is a public satsang, a public broadcast where we speak about all matters spirituality, share experiences on the spiritual path. I give guidance and provide support for my students. So my name is Artem Boycev. This is my website, so everyone is welcome to come check it out. It contains a rather large collections of my writings on the topic of spiritual enlightenment, as well as videos, the ability to schedule a one-on-one session with me, some information about the retreats, and other things. So I highly encourage everyone to participate in this satsang live. So for that, I will show I will post a link. So this is a StreamYard link. It's a browser-based software. All you need is a browser. And when you come, I'll be able to bring you on stage and we can have a conversation. So if you don't wish to do that for whatever reason, then please don't go to this link. You can watch the broadcast on YouTube or Facebook, and you can submit comments on Facebook or YouTube in the chat in YouTube, and I'll be able to bring them on screen and address them. But of course, I highly encourage everyone to participate and speak in person. So video interactions is very much different from text, and in-person interaction is actually much different from video. So speaking about in-person interactions, my wife and I just returned less than a week ago from our first retreat in Europe. So we finally have made our way to Europe, and I know a lot of you have been following me from there. So we met a lot of people. It was for about 20 people. It's a little bigger than usual. Usually our retreats in the United States are from anywhere between 12 and 15 people. There was about 20. So in a small town, 2 hours driving distance from Bordeaux, we had a large property. It was a wonderful retreat, a 3-day intensive retreat. I met many of you, many of my students, long-term students, for the first time. Many tears were cried, many laughs were had, much relaxation followed. It was a beautiful, beautiful gathering. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it tremendously. And thank you everyone for coming. So we'll be posting some photos from this retreat. And their participants will be able to chime in with their impressions and experience on Facebook. So there will be a post on Facebook about this retreat. We haven't processed the pictures yet. And speaking of retreats, another one we are hosting in Northern California on September 27th to 30th. So it's pretty much 3 weeks from now. It will be in Oregon House, California. It's a small town. It's close to Yuba City. I published a YouTube video where I invite everyone to this retreat. It's on my YouTube. Please go check it out. In the description of this video, there's all the information about this upcoming retreat, as well as links to the photo report from the old one in the same location. So it's going to take place in the same location as the one that we did in May, I believe. Gorgeous location, gorgeous property. So we still have some spots left. I think we have about 5 spots left or something like that. So if you're interested, if you can make your way to Northern California, or if you're local, please send me an email. All the contact information on the website. You can contact us via email, via Facebook Messenger, via Discord. Discord is probably the best. If you're interested, we still have some places available. We also do, as a reminder, we also do periodic live satsangs in Santa Cruz, California. The next one is probably going to be somewhere in October. So if you're local to the area, and of course, if you're local to the area, you can also come visit me in my house. So that's what I wanted to share with you as it comes to news. And we have some guests in the room. and we'll start. So Veronica sends a heart. Veronica was in our retreat in California. It's wonderful. It's happy to see you here. So we have some guests in the waiting room, and we'll start with Max. Hi, Max.
Hey, Artem.
Hey,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So I've been a fan of yours for like 3 months now. I initially found you via the Frank Yang interview you did. I think a lot of people found you through that, and
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it helped a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and since then I've been reading a lot of your work and watching your videos. I think today I just wanted to first of all say hey and thank you for your work, and also
Thanks,
just and also just wanted to maybe ask a few questions about my path, I guess. So just for a quick rundown, so you kind of get like the idea. I think I've had like spiritual experiences ever since I had been a child. So like moments where I felt deeply connected, where like it seemed like the me dropped away and I was just so in the moment. I've kind of had that since I was a child. And in 2017, I was listening to Alan Watts a lot. I just, for some reason, really got into him. And he's been kind of my gateway drug into all of this.
Yeah, it was the same for me, actually. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I don't quite remember this moment really, but I do fully remember afterwards talking to my sister. Something happened. Something happened to me where I just, for the first time, felt like somebody paused the game of life, and I noticed that I was playing it in a way, if that makes sense. So I remember talking to her because I was big into video games at that time. It really felt like I was so immersed in the game all the time that I never noticed I was playing it. And now that whole thing definitely doesn't feel the same way anymore, but that was really like I guess kind of like my first awakening situation. And since then, I've been really into Alan Watts as well, Krishnamurti, your work, Angelo DeLulo from Simply Always Awake. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I heard of it many times.
Stuff like that. So that's really been an interesting path. And about 1.5 years ago, there was like a very emotional moment for me where I like connected to something really deeply, and I think that's kind of something opened in me, and I felt like I was pulled in to everything, and I looked around for the first time. I just started laughing and crying at the same time, and I just looked at everything, and I was like, wait, everything is me. Like, how could I never notice that? How could I never seen that? And since then, it has clarified or changed in a way. It always felt like what people talked about when they talk about non-duality, where I felt like I was more and more getting towards that. And recently, you did one of those satsangs here with, I forgot his name, but he basically said that he kind of like had this like non-doership which he went through, and like kind of like where he felt like, and he was at the point where he kind of had to let go of that, and life was asking him to connect to like the life again, to activity again. And that's kind of how I felt like the last year. And I just allowed that to happen, and I really also looked for what was trying like to stay small or to stay in this like non-duality kind of like perspective, and what was kind of like trying, or what was making me not want to commit to life in some ways. And a lot of like fear came up for sure.
Always fear.
Yeah, a lot of fear. And yeah, now I think I'm just kind of at a point where obviously I can still very much, if I try to compare it with, before all of this, I can see how I totally see reality, how my experience of reality is totally different, but it also has gone so much more normal in a way, like just like normality just came, like simplicity just all started. And I know you talk about this, but I think there's like this little doubt in me that says maybe all of this wasn't deep enough for you yet. Maybe you didn't went through all of this deep enough, because I do had like phases, years where I felt like completely emotional, felt like I was going crazy. I had moments I remember where I was like this short of like calling someone and saying, I think I'm going insane here. But now it's so calm, like it's much calmer, even in moments where I don't necessarily where it's like stressful or where life is just difficult, but it's direct. And what I wanted to ask you, this was kind of like a long-winded way of asking you, is there like anything you might have like an idea for me to look at? Is this just like some rest of doubt that's in me, that this is clear? Because I do see that those are just thoughts too, but there's like a little bit of doubt in me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And it's a fairly common question. I mean, it's a question that I get all the time. Many people don't know that, but actually, most of the people that I work with are not seekers. I have very few seekers that I work with. Most people that I work with had a moment of insight. Sometimes they call it the Satori or Kensho, or some kind of an abiding presence. So I kind of specialize in taking people into deeper stages of equanimity rather than having them finding consciousness. There are a lot of people who do that, and very few to lead further, even though there's an argument to be made that further kind of things happen by itself. Well, yes and no. There are some people say yes, but then there are other people who say, well, no, life is continued practice, and life is sadhana, blah blah blah. So a couple of things I'd like to comment on what you said. Interestingly, the experiences of non-dual moments in childhood are fairly common. And interestingly, even I myself, and when I say even I mean, the reason I say even is because I was very heavily engaged in the mind. So I had a very difficult childhood, and I went into like the geek direction fairly early. So I was a kind of a very highly intellectual, kind of a prodigy kind of child. Went into math and physics, so a very active mind. So even I had moments like this, and not many, but I do, and they kind of etched in my memory to this day. So I remember kind of as I was walking to a grocery store, like everything felt suddenly okay. And interestingly, only after awakening, I realized what they were and why they were significant and why they were etched into memory. Like before that, it was just okay. So there's some moment completely unexplainable, like why, but there's some moment that I remember very well. So that's fairly common. I liked what you said about the calmness that is present even in the midst of suffering, and that's the experience, that's the deepening of the realization. That's the experience of everyone. So this calmness is present in the midst of suffering, and this suffering, slowly through experiencing it, through giving it love, through allowing it, dissolves into this calmness. Now, whether if there is doubt in the mind that there is something else, there's no question about it. I mean, the path actually is quite long, and all suffering comes from false beliefs. All suffering comes from misperceived reality. And so for as long as suffering arises, it needs to be allowed, it needs to be experienced, and the wrong ideas, the wrong beliefs, the mind's bondage gets exposed and uncovered during this process. And so suffering of the ego is multifaceted. It's big. It has a lot of components. It has a lot of layers to it, and every small piece of it permanently goes away by permanently eradicating some belief. Right. So I must be always a certain way. I should. There is a certain behavior that is expected of me, and that most importantly, internalized expectations. Right. So others might still expect it of you. It's your choice whether to be in conflict with them or not, but what brings suffering is the internalized expectations. And suffering, strictly speaking, can be defined as any unpleasantness or difficulty arising at the time of rest where the body is physically completely fine. So that's kind of the best way to define suffering. That's why all suffering is coming from the past. So all suffering is unresolved past. unresolved trauma, and basically the false beliefs that we have is also unresolved past. That's why they call it conditioning. So we are conditioned to behave a certain way. We're conditioned to view ourselves a certain way. We're conditioned to view the world a certain way. There's usually a lot of hatred and self-loathing or anger and grief in that, and in unfolding all of that. And so this conditioning is shed by illuminating the false beliefs and by accepting suffering on a sensate experiential level. So there are a lot of people who say enlightenment is a state of kind of, it's not a state of transcending of suffering, but a state of like, okay, you just don't take your suffering seriously. This is bullshit. That's actually not true at all. So
Yeah.
deep equanimity is transcendent of suffering. That being said, none of the bodily suffering, none of the bodily pain, but of all the kind of emotional, energetic suffering associated with life. And that's why I defined it this way, right? Something that arises in you in a period of prolonged rest, which is what meditation is just a prolonged rest. So a period of prolonged rest, the restlessness, the difficulty, the tensions, the bodily tensions, muscular tensions, energetic tensions, fear, kind of everyone who meditated for long enough have seen fear.
Definitely.
Tears, grief, all of that. So from that perspective, for as long as a long-term meditation is productive for you, for as long as a long meditation arises these things in you, meditation continues to be an effective practice. And so then we can also talk about psychedelics. Psychedelics are basically meditation on steroids. It's forced. The way that I talk about psychedelics, it's a forced and intense meditation. So that's the reason why they're so effective, but it's also the reason why one must be careful with them. And the careful part here is forced. It's much easier to abort your meditation, your deep meditation experience, even though some people get psychotic episodes from meditation also. But it's much easier to abort your meditation session than it is a psychedelic trip. And also, I usually give 3 ways that how realization deepens. So first is longish meditation, second is psychedelic, and the third one is being in physical presence and participating in retreats, for example, or basically not necessarily in retreats, but basically spending time in dialogue and physical presence with other awakened individuals. That includes me, of course. So the deeper they are, the more efficient it is. So having very honest conversation, having conversations on topics that are uncomfortable for you. That's why kind of it's more efficient to work with deeply realized teacher, because basically you can define a deeply realized teacher as a person for whom topics that are still uncomfortable for you are no longer uncomfortable at all. And so they can talk about them with you effortlessly, not being affected, while you may still be affected, and the remaining suffering and then crumbling of the false beliefs associated with this can happen through that. So a good teacher can challenge your beliefs, which emotionally can also be kind of like a meditative or psychedelic experience. So you can schedule one-on-one sessions with me for that kind of work. And you can also, I don't know where you are, but you can also join a retreat. So the kind of the on my retreats, usually there are most, but not all of them, but most people have had at least some like spiritual experience. There's some different state of consciousness. So that together, this kind of atmosphere. So some people talk about energy, and it's okay. It's completely possible to talk about energy. Some people feel incredible energy just in my presence. But the truth is that it's not like I emit some sort of energy. I emit no energy at all whatsoever. but it's their own energy in the mind starts expanding, and their own mind starts illuminating itself. So and from that perspective, a teacher is but a permission, and an atmosphere of a retreat, for example, is also an extended permission, because it's also a social kind of gathering where a lot of people are doing the same work. So those are kind of the 3 main things that I recommend to people who want to deepen their realization: meditation, psychedelics, and working with a teacher or attending retreats and things like that. Now, when you Mention life itself. Life itself is a wonderful teacher. So you absolutely can lock yourself into a cave and meditate for 3 years until you're more or less clear. And you will be more or less clear, but you will not be completely clear because still kind of
Yeah.
as you go out in life, meditation can touch a lot. Meditation can touch pretty much everything. But
Honestly, that's kind of been my experience recently. I didn't lock myself in a cave, but I kind of went like 1 year, pretty much my home was my cave, and I just kind
yeah,
of like did that. So
we
I
would.
was like I deeply connected to everything, and I felt like every day there were like really like what you described for a while. I just cried. I think like
Mhm.
last year I cried more than I cried my whole life.
Oh
Like
yeah,
and
that's how it
so
is. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how it goes. Yep.
it was pretty crazy. And
Yep.
it's just recently it's also been that meditation I still very much, I enjoy it. It's very
Mhm.
calming. And sometimes there's like um bodily sensations that I really connect with, that feel like tension, but it's rarely something that I can still pinpoint how it was like before, where I felt like, oh, there's something like this that's bothering
Mhm.
me. It's usually much calmer, and it very much feels similar to like going to sleep in a way, like kind of
Yep.
like this
Yep.
state
Exactly.
where you're
That's
like
how it's
right
supposed to
about.
be. Yes, it's
Yeah.
all perfectly unfolding perfectly well for you. So that's how it's supposed to be. Meditation and sleep actually merge into one experience,
Okay. Yeah.
sooner or later, because there is no difference between them actually. Meditation is only special in the dream state when we're very restless and we don't even know how we fall asleep, and then we forget ourselves during sleeping. There's like it's only invisible in the state because we are separated from ourselves by a lot of suffering and restlessness. So meditation is something special, but generally speaking, meditation is just rest. So which is also why I oftentimes give advice that you cannot fall asleep, just meditate. Don't worry, the body rests the same. So if
Mhm.
you sort of you want your mind to go off, but it doesn't, just meditate, relax the body and just meditate throughout the whole night. So I have many nights where it felt like I did not fall asleep at all, but the body is still refreshed in the morning. So so yes, with regards to kind of how deep the meditation goes, the deeper you go on the path, the longer you have to meditate to see the remaining attachments and dependencies and remaining suffering. So for someone who has found this fundamental calmness, this fundamental okayness, uh, usually the interesting things only start to happen at about 1 hour mark. So I
Mhm.
recommend most people in your situation to meditate for 90 minutes at least, and usually like a couple of hours or 2.5 hours, something like that. I'm sure that if you kind of improvise yourself another kind of vipassana retreat where you will meditate for every day for 8 hours, there would be some stuff there. That being said,
Sure. Yeah.
enlightenment is not running away from life. You absolutely also must descend back into reality, because the the conditioning is done by other people, and so it is triggered, it is uncovered by other people more
Yeah.
efficiently than anything else. That's also why a teacher or a master is more efficient uh, than like even your mother, for example. But aside from that, the people who are most efficient in uncovering the rest of suffering in you are the people whom you are closest with. So there is a lot. So Ram Dass was exactly right when he said, if you think you're enlightened, spend a couple of weeks with your
Yeah.
family. So living life, exercising this freedom. So the freedom is found, but it needs to be exercised. You see, so those, because yes, the patterns of behavior are unglued, unbound on the level of the mind, but it needs to also made real, right? So you can, like, for example, if you're a person who have a difficulty time saying no, then you may see this in meditation 100 times, but the first time you actually have to say no to someone in real life,
Yeah.
it's going to be a slightly different experience, because it is a little bit more real.
Yeah, you're pretty right on the money there, actually. That was something that I struggled with for a
A
lot.
lot of
And
people do.
yeah,
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 a lot of people do. And so the kind of the newfound insights, they need to be embodied, they need to become a part of life. So from that perspective, it's completely normal at some point of time to have this kind of intuition. I need to become active. I need to
yeah,
become living, regardless of like whether you're a Buddha or not a Buddha, or like you have like some conditioning left or not some conditioning left, regardless of that. So so I think kind of in a state of realization, the best way forward is to actualize your freedom, is to enjoy your life, is to live the life the way you want, because that's what enlightenment ultimately is about. It's about living
Yeah.
your life the way you want, not the way that others want for you to live your life.
Right.
And so, and at the same time, combine it with some forms of practice. And the deeper you go, the kind of more uh, hardcore, let's say, that you become, right? Like, for
Mm,
example, like meditating for 3 hours may be considered to be hardcore. Taking like a large dose of psychedelic may be considered to be hardcore. But for you specifically, for each individual, it also becomes somewhat easier as you kind of. It's usually the most dramatic in the beginning.
yeah.
Uh, so so I would say, just to summarize, right? I would say that everything goes exactly as it should. You explained it perfectly. Your intuition is correct. So I'm also inviting you to my Discord community, right? So people also in conversations, they also uncover some things. So some combination of active life and continued practice would be best, I think.
Yeah. I think so too. The time recently where I really looked at that and looked at the fear of kind of going back into life after this time of, just stepping away, I noticed some stuff coming up that I don't think I would have ever seen if I wouldn't have done that. So that, in combination with meditation and the retreat thing, is I think something that would be very good for me, because I've never done that. I've never.
Where do you live?
I live in Germany.
Oh, Germany. Oh, well, unfortunately, the European one just passed. We have another one in the United States, but it's a long flight.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe if you do another one in Europe, I might attend if I can.
It
Do
it But we got so tired that
that.
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen
I
like
know.
at least a year from now. We were
Yeah.
so tired after this, my wife and I.
Well, thank you so much for your answer and for
You're
taking the
most
time.
welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you for coming.
No worries.
All
See you.
right. So, yeah. All right. So that was Max. Let's see. I have some. I have some questions. So Alex says, "Hi Artem." Hi Alex. Uh, so uh, Bay Tropolis says, "Artem, things are starting to get experiential and non-dual. Good. Boundaries are melting away. Nice. The sense of separation is getting thinner. Awesome. Distance, sensation, etc. are getting weird. Yeah, yeah. They can get weird uh, because of the kind of forgotten intensity of how they really are. So the sensations of life, the sensations of your body, in their immediacy, are actually quite intense. So the in the dream state, we don't notice it, so to say, because we are focused on the other things that are covering the sensations. We spend a lot of time in the mind, but yeah, that's normal. My ego is getting really afraid of this. Did you experience any fear when this started happening? Yes, yes, of course, yes. And the ego gets really afraid of it. This is right, and then fear becomes just another sensation to get closer to, because in reality, you have nothing to be afraid of. Nothing is happening to you. Everything that you're going to find out on the spiritual path, you have already known. And this journey into the unknown from the perspective of the ego is a huge, is the biggest um, surrender, is the biggest jump into an unfamiliar territory. But from the perspective of the real you, it's a remembering. So the ego gets very afraid. Yes, this is true. Don't worry about it. No one has ever died out of fear. It's just fear. So breathe, breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Explore the fear on the experiential level. Welcome it. It's about to show you something. It's about to lead you somewhere. And remember that unless something's physically dangerous happening to you, which is not in meditation, obviously, the fear in meditation and the fear in the spiritual journey is always the fear of experience. It's always the fear of what's coming after fear. It's always the fear of remembering something. It's all the fear of acknowledging that you don't know. It's all the fear. It's always the fear of dropping some of your beliefs. It's always the fear of the emotional, energetic experience that comes with it. So, so fear is good. Fear means that if you stay for long enough with the fear, you're going to learn something interesting, or you're going to unlearn something interesting, or you're going to see something about yourself which you were previously in denial of, or do not really want to see. That's why the fear is there. So completely normal. Everything is going fine. Cube Filmer says, how much daily meditation would you recommend for someone who's on the path and has had glimpses of awakening, but has a good amount of conditioning and is not self-realized? That is a difficult question. I don't really know. So I think we should speak personally. I mean, answering these questions without knowing a person is difficult. Like, for example, you could be really struggling, and even 20-minute meditation may be difficult for you. So then I would recommend you start with self-compassion meditation, with extending kindness and love towards yourself. Or you could be meditating for like an hour, and then things are getting weird or difficult or disorienting or scary in meditation. Then I would say, please continue. So it's hard to say. Generally speaking, there is nothing wrong with very long meditation. So most people who attend Vipassana courses are not self-realized, obviously, and there's nothing wrong with meditating for 7 days, 10 days, especially in a setting where you have self-support. So people have all sorts of very profound experience and transformational experience in long meditation. So if you can meditate for long, then please, there's kind of no limit to it. Don't torture your body also, right? If you're sitting in a position that restricts blood flow, then there's no reason to do that. You can lie down. There's no like preferred posture for meditation, but you can meditate for long. For sure. So you can like if you can, then I would say a couple of hours. You know, you can also enhance your meditation experience with deprivation tanks, for example. So you can attend the Vipassana course. There's a lot of things that you can try, but there is no kind of cookie cut answer like don't meditate for longer than 2 hours. No, not at all. But also, if it's very difficult, and even 20 minutes is difficult, then obviously you slowly increase the time. You don't just kind of torture yourself. Okay, Manny is saying, what do you consider the fully enlightened state to be like? To be like internal. I don't understand the question. I mean, like mine. I don't know. It's like it's not the same as kind of the internal experience and how the person is externally and what they like are very different things. But basically, the full enlightened state is the state where prolonged meditation, significant dose of psychedelics, or conversations with other people do not create any disturbance in the mind or in the body. That's basically what it is. So it's the okay. So you say, to add that, do you feel as if you are more your body or just head with the body? Okay. So you're asking about identity. This is not a very important question. You know, the question of identity is not a very important question. So kind of people tend to kind of fish for the right answers, like what do you identify with? Oh, the enlightened person would say, I am that I am, and or there's a right way to say that you have no identity, and that's like the most important thing. Anyone can say that, and a free individual can say I am anything at all. I can say I'm a husband, I'm that, or I can say I'm nothing, I'm everything. Like I am that I am. It's like none of this really matters. I mean, I can say a lot of things. It's just language. So subjectively, the question of identity. So one goes through the identity goes through some shifts, right? So they identify with everything, identifying with nothing, then they become one and the same. And then I say that yes, at the end of the path, the identity comes back to the body. But to be more precise, uh, the completion of the path is oneness in all aspects. So it's oneness of consciousness, mind, and body. So a more precise way is to put like Osho said, right? So in Beyond the Limb, he said, finally, my consciousness and my body are finally one. But what separates, but the reason why I say I am the body, what separates that from a kind of a state which is not what I would describe as full enlightenment is rejection of the body. So it's like I'm conscious, I'm not the body, I'm not the body. So anyone who say I'm not the body are in rejection of the body. I would never say that. So the if you're in the rejection of the body, you actually cannot not have conceit, because you will absolutely feel superior to other living beings who, in your view, are uh, identify with the body. For example, animals, right? So from my perspective, I'm the same as any animal. So strictly speaking, the full enlightened state is when consciousness, the contents of consciousness, body, mind are all seen to be one thing, completely indivisible. There's no like consciousness and the body, and like I'm conscious and I'm not the body. So you can kind of describe my experience as consciousness, and the contents of consciousness are the brain or the mind, not unconditioned mind, like the five senses. Or you can describe my experience as the very bodily experience of life. But in any case, the consciousness and contents of consciousness, there is no division between them. And so kind of uh, uh, that's why I describe the last stages like I'm just a hairless monkey, and also it irritates a lot of spiritual people who think that this is like a lower state of consciousness and they're like flying somewhere high above. And they take a lot of issue with that. But the reality of your situation is actually, yeah, you can say your consciousness, uh, you can say you're eternal, you're going to die, it's going to be an eternal nothingness. You can say a lot of things, but the reality of your situation is that you're an organism, you're a living, breathing organism that unnecessarily suffers, and as this living, breathing organism, your life is going to end one day. And so anything that is not yet sort of in alignment with this reality is still a significant rejection of the body, rejection of death, and the rejection of death is a rejection of life itself. So that's why I kind of phrased it this way. But to be more precise, there is a oneness in the experience of the body, mind, and consciousness. Okay. Let's see. I have some other questions, and then I have two people waiting in the room, Dag and Bojan, so we'll bring them in. Thomas is asking, from self-realization to enlightenment, compared to enlightenment until this present day, which periods had the biggest changes in your day-to-day experience? By far, the biggest periods were the beginning periods. So the changes in your day-to-day experience, the changes of your worldview, the changes of your perspective, the changes of your relationship with yourself, which is also your relationship with everyone else, strictly speaking, correspond to the amount of emotional suppression. So when you're going sort of fast, so to speak, so if you like meditate, or you had a self-realization moment, and then you become very raw, very, very vulnerable, you meditate a lot, or take psychedelics and you cry a lot, and there's anger and resentment. As you work through those things, you will notice more changes in your day-to-day life experience. So they kind of correspond, because the amount of suffering and the amount of emotional suppression are also strictly related. So in the beginning, when it was very intense, right? So when I cried every day for like a few years, and had very intense meditations, and had very intense trips, and had to deal with like existential things, and the fear of death, the fear of life, the realization of fucked upness of this society, and then seeing it deeper and deeper and deeper. Those were more changes, right? So the deeper I went, the less changes, obviously. So it's It kind of goes like this. The word lust, I think, is evident from your work. Yes, this is true. How does an enlightened person lust? An enlightened person does not lust, so I don't experience lust. In terms of sex, money, material possessions, right? Yes. So none of those things, sex, money, material possessions, can possibly make me happier, right? So sex is a temporary pleasure. Kind of material possessions, they also they may give me a sense of security, which is still money and material possessions. They can give me a sense of security, but it's still kind of an illusory security because I can still die at any moment. I can be the richest person in the world, and then I can get some disease tomorrow and die. So we're all equal from that perspective. And they can also give only like temporary pleasure. None of those are real pleasures. They can be compared to me. They can be compared to like the taste of good food. It's a temporary pleasure, but it's not really the source of contentment, the source of enjoyment, the source of satisfaction. So the source of satisfaction is life itself. The source of satisfaction is your being itself. The source of enjoyment of your life is your life itself. It's you. And so uh, in the dream state, we try to cover up our suffering by finding some pleasures, the real function of which is to distract us from the suffering and give us a temporary relief. That's why people become sex addicts. That's why people lust after orgasm, because during the orgasm you don't suffer. It's the same as getting addicted to heroin or alcoholism, because during, like, when you are in an experience which either numbs you very deeply. That's why numbing drugs are pleasant. They're only pleasant because you're suffering, so they numb everything, including the suffering. Or it is so intense that you kind of in the moment, in the body, out of the suffering mind, which can be said about orgasm, then temporarily you don't suffer. And we covet this state so much. So it's the same as the states of flow. It's the same reason that people do extreme sports most of the time, because during this short periods of time, the suffering is forgotten. Now, enlightenment is the state where the suffering is forgotten permanently, but unfortunately, in order to forget your suffering permanently, you must investigate it, you must experience it, you must stop becoming afraid of it, and you must look at how it originates, how it arises and falls, and what the mind says when it arises and falls. So you're right to categorize, to use the word lust in a kind of a more broad sense, because just like people lust for sex, they lust for money, they lust for any other illusory thing that they think can relieve them from the suffering. So you're right, I don't use this word very often. I think it has very kind of, I think like it has some sort of a biblical connotation. I think that people who are struggling with sex addiction will kind of understand how unhealthy it can be, but then again, for a lot of people, it also can lead to kind of demonizing sexuality, demonizing desire in general. And I oftentimes say, you cannot get rid of any desires until you exhaust your desires. So kind of it's a little bit too loaded word for me, I would say, lust, but yeah, I mean, I can use it. You technically are correct here. You say, when did you start feeling any resentment or anger, especially in relation to family or those who abused you? So so the interesting thing about how this works, right? So why it's also revelation from the past, is that after self-realization, you oftentimes begin dealing with things that are very, very far in the past, or somewhere in the middle of the path. Like, as you go deeper, the abuse, mistreatment, or neglect that you suffered as a child, right? So some people see previous lives. It's actually about the same thing. The abuse, mistreatment, neglect of the general society, of other people, not just you. So you see things kind of very deeply as kind of reevaluation of the decades of your life basically starts happening from a more truthful perspective. So those are the biggest reservoirs of suppressed anger, rage, and resentment. And again, like most of it is experienced if the realization was relatively deep, then most of it will be experienced in the first few years. It's not always very deep. The realization is not always very deep. So you can have kind of a moment. You can have a moment, an opening, and then a period of difficulty where a lot of emotional repression comes to the surface. But then, afterwards, after some time, the next opening will make this one look like child's play. So this happens also. But if we're speaking about the more or less complete process, then most of it will be in the beginning. But what happens later, right? So as the life continues, so some patterns continues, and resentment or anger can still accumulate from the little actions that one does against itself due to not completely resolved patterns of conditioning. And so the waves of it can come until they subside, and it becomes, and the clarity is all the time, and it becomes immediately clear when you are mistreated. And so we could like say that self-realization, like the huge big wave of going through all of this suppression, and then there could be another one, and then another one, and another one, and then very deep into the journey, they just become very small, right? And they become smaller and smaller with like every passing year. So just some hints of anger, some hints of resentment, and only like in a very large dose of psychedelics or something like that. So it's difficult to say like when it stopped, but I would say that uh, like after the first. Well, okay, so my practice was intense. Remember that. I did pretty much nothing but that. I meditated 4 hours every day. I did a lot of psychedelics. And I would say that, like, probably after 3 years or so, it was really very, very difficult to get me angry with it's like in any form of conversation. But it wasn't like, it wasn't completely resolved at that time. But the remaining thing was kind of simple. So like somewhere in 2021, I could already like very, very easily spend 2 weeks with my parents and not get angry at them. Okay, let's see. So we have another question. What were the weeks, months like leading to your self-realization? Oh, actually, before my self-realization, I went through what people would describe as the dark night of the soul. So I had a very, very deep uh, and torturous depression, like the biggest of my life, with lots of suicidal ideation. It was very difficult. So, were you having mystical experiences, shifts, that stuff? I had some because I was also, that was the time when I started also experimenting with psychedelics. So I had a lot of out of body, infinite space, infinite consciousness experiences on DMT. Lots of them, lots of them, that actually helped me with my deep depression. I had some mystical experiences on LSD, but since I wasn't a seeker, just a kind of not a spiritual seeker, I did not read any spiritual literature at that time. I had not. So it was during that time that I also began to listen to Alan Watts, and I kind of started getting interested in it. But before that, I was just a deeply suffering individual. I did not like try to put it two and two together with all the spiritual books and literature, which is oftentimes a waste of time. So I did not. I just kind of had an intuition that I need to figure something out, and um, yeah, I guess that was it. Did you have an intuition that something was coming? Yes. So I had a like maybe half a year uh, before enlightenment or self-realization. I was in a state where it has begun uh, to be it had begun to be like very difficult to smoke even a little bit of weed without getting paranoia. So I had a premonition that something big was about to come. I also had a lot of fear that I wasn't going to live very long, that I was about to die, which isn't like in some way true, but this from the ego's perspective. Um, and I was kind of I did have a premonition something big was about to come. So like at that time, or more or less, maybe a few months afterwards, I started like reading something about spiritual enlightenment, hoping to get it. I didn't get it, of course. So it happened when I least expected. But yeah, that's actually fairly normal. Like that something big is about to happen. That's fairly normal. So Bay says, I'm sorry you suffered so deeply. I can relate. Thank you. Yes, I did. And I'm sorry for everyone who still suffers very deeply. Okay, so we have another guest. So Bojan and Dag, I can still see you, but we have a guest whom I haven't spoken before, Louis. Hi, Louis.
Hello.
Oh, actually, we did speak before.
Yes, we
Yes,
have.
we did.
It's been a while, a few months maybe.
Mhm.
I think just for those watching, before I contacted Artem, I was quite proud with the fact that I was meditating twice a day for 20 minutes. And as soon as I told Artem that, he just said, "That's not long enough.
No, it's
That's
not.
not long enough." And he was so right. He was so right. I think where I'm at now on my journey, like I can no longer get answers from the mind. And what's amazing actually is that I've been smoking weed quite a lot, and I always hated it because it made me very paranoid. But I no longer get that. The interesting part is that it really allows me to feel into my body, and I've found so many places of tension.
Yes.
My throat.
Mm-hmm.
My throat is a massive one.
Mm-hmm. Those uncried tears.
I've yet to cry them. They're simply just coming into my awareness. I'm tension in my head, in my eyes, everything that I just was not aware of. It's now starting to come up, and
beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like it's
Yeah.
like my intuition's telling me that I'm on the right track.
Yes,
I just need to work through that. But of course, for those that are watching and whatnot, my journey started because I had inflammatory bowel disease, which I still have, and it's being managed through immunosuppressant medication. But I've always had an intuition that my illness was related to my emotional suppression as a child.
It's quite possible, yes.
And I'm a very skeptical person, like I would say. And I've tried absolutely everything to cure my illness, and I mean to the extreme. Like there's the conventional way of doing it, and then there's the really niche, like unorthodox ways of going about it. I've tried absolutely everything. The only progress I've found is through the spiritual practice.
Did it get a little better?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me. My wife also had a lot of digestive problems, and they got much better. And she pretty much doesn't have them at all now.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. It is crazy to what extent the body is abused by the mind. It is crazy. Like those tensions that you see now. So those are the kind of quite gross tensions in the musculature, right, that you can perceive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the same thing pretty much all over the body and in your internal organs and everywhere, and it's you see it also takes a lot of energy to sustain those tensions, because if you have a tension, it means that there's a muscle that is chronically contracted. And the reason it's chronically contracted is like if you're forbidden your tears, if you're forbidden to cry, that you will contract your throat all the time. And as your throat relaxes, you feel pain there and you start beginning to cry and all of this. So if you have like a chronic contractions of some musculature in the body, that leads to chronic inflammation. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of things that get healed. Not all of them, of course. Like I still have sinus issues, but there's a tremendous amount of things that heal through the spiritual transformation, including things like migraines. And lots of people with digestive problems also get much better.
Migraines are something I've never experienced before
Good.
until
I'm happy
they were tough. They were really tough. But yeah, I'm very thankful for obviously your work and obviously what we've been speaking about. Your writings too on Quora have really helped me.
Very happy to hear.
Your writings are phenomenal, Artem. They really are.
Thank you.
The work you've done is it's just what I needed right now on my journey. I don't believe there's anybody else that I'm aware of which really helped me to understand the difference between self-realization and enlightenment, and that it's a spectrum of how much
Yes.
unconscious conditionings you have yet to process. And it makes so much sense to me. Now I'm on that path, and you've helped the cause grow.
Beautiful. Very happy to hear. Thank you very much for your kind words. With regards to THC, yeah, it's actually quite psychedelic. I experienced a lot of fear and shaking on THC. I had insights on THC, also exposure to bodily tensions. When you get exposed to them, look at them, give them attention, look at them. The interesting thing about attention, well, obviously, if the emotion is more intense, let's look at the emotion. But sometimes in your meditative experience, the most intense part is attention somewhere. Yeah. And then you go there directly. The interesting thing, I mean, how the magic of awareness happens, it's extraordinary. It's difficult to see that because in the beginning it feels like it's almost as if by magic, but there's nothing magical about it. When the tension is slight, when there's already very little conditioning, I could see that very clearly, because what's actually happening is that every tension is created literally by you. Right, it's your organism tenses something, right? And so when you look at the tension, you look at it, it relaxes at the same time as you realize how you were actually tensing up. And before, you don't know, like before, you just feel like that there is a tension, and then relax, and you finally found this. Oh, I can actually relax it. Oh wow, it was me. I can, whoa, wow, here I tensed it up. Oh, here I relaxed it again. Whoa, what
it gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah. So if the tension is very gross, very difficult, then you might not get that. Like, you just look at it, it's perceived as pain, and then it just relaxes out of the blue, like a completely unexpected. But strictly speaking, that's what's going on. That's why it's important to look. Right. So because when you look at the tense muscle, and you look until you actually start seeing that it is you that is doing that, and that's the moment where you can actually start relaxing it. So it's important to look. It's important to give it attention, even if it's uncomfortable. And if THC does that for you, beautiful. There is some addictive potential with vaped and smoked THC, not as much as edibles in my experience, but there is some. But in my view, it outweighs the benefit if you actually get to more of the meditative states where you have emotional suppression, fear, shaking, tensions. It can be used as any other psychedelic to intensify the meditation experience, and then quitting it even cold turkey in a rather realized state of consciousness might be a little unpleasant, but it's still like nothing compared to like quitting nicotine. So kind of watch out for that. It might make you a little bit like lethargic, and if you feel like you would rather be more energetic and do more stuff in life, then
definitely make sure.
Then just do a sober meditation. You can switch to other psychedelics. They don't have the same effect. It's mostly weed that has this effect, the lethargy. But still, it could be very, very potent tool. So that's just a couple of comments that I'd like to make.
I just had one question whilst we were speaking. These pockets of tension throughout the body, once I've fully relaxed them, as I understand, they're relaxed. They'll no longer knot up and turn into balls of energy again, trapped energy. So my question is if you to completely relax the tension throughout the body, there's no way of the body accumulating that tension again, or is it a continuous process?
So strictly speaking, a completely enlightened state is the state of zero emotional suppression. So you never kind of hold the emotions. You never disallow yourself to feel anything. So all tensions, the persistent tensions that you can see in meditation, come from decades of disallowing yourself to feel something. So it does not mean that once you go through attention and meditation once and it relaxes, it will not come back again. It might come back again for as long as there's still some emotional suppression. And the tensions are connected also to emotional suppression. Now, you can be looking at a tension for long enough, and that as it relaxes, you might also begin to cry, or you might feel something. And you can even talk about emotions as very big tensions. So emotions and tensions are related. So if I'm not mistaken, it's also explored in the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I haven't read the book, but even by the name of it, I can tell you that it's precisely right. And a lot of my students say that it's a great book. So of course they can reappear for as long as not all suppression is resolved, or there's some tendency to still suppress. But the deeper you go into the journey, the more subtle they become, the less they appear, the quicker you kind of come to your own senses and say, why am I doing this again? Why am I again living in self-rejection, suppressing something out of some fear of being judged by myself or others? And kind of, Adyashanti once said that, or was it him? I think it was him. It's like there could be like thousands of mini awakenings. You see, like every time that you get lost in the old pattern of behavior of rejection and suppression, you kind of have a mini awakening, and the intensity of that mini awakening corresponds to for how long it was you were lost. If you were lost for 30 years, then obviously self-realization is going to be an intense, dramatic, huge event. But you may be lost for a month, for example, like thinking that you absolutely have to have something to be happy. You may be lost for a day, and you may be lost for 5 minutes, and then it's going to be like ha ha ha, and just a little relaxation, just a tiny bit. But basically, they kind of you can look at it even this way, right? And so in this framework, from this perspective, of course, some tensions might return, but they return less and less and less, just like there is less and less emotional suppression, and ultimately they permanently resolve.
That's all I needed to hear. No, I really am happy with currently right now the place I'm at. Again, I still get caught up in thought, but it's where awareness kicks in, and I just ask myself, why am I being so hard on myself? Why am I, why do I believe I need to be doing something else right now? And it is a lot about just giving yourself that love that you've never been given before.
Yes.
And
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Something which I initially, when I was on the spiritual path, I rejected. I didn't like that idea of we all have to be, loving, and we have to love humanity.
Oh no, you cannot do that. You need to love yourself. The love of humanity is just a consequence. I once said, enlightenment is always something you give to yourself. Always. It's always a permission that you give to yourself, a permission to live differently, a permission to be free, a permission to feel, a permission to express, a permission to not hide any longer something from yourself, a permission not to be in denial about what's going on, a permission not to be in denial of death, or not to be in denial of mistreatment. You see, so it's always something that you give a permission to be blissful, a permission to be joyful, a permission to be content, a permission to be happy, even if some people don't want you to be happy. So it's always something that you give to yourself.
Yeah, I believe it's the best way to help others too.
Yes.
Because I have a tendency to want to change people, but I'm beyond that now. I realize I need to change I have to be careful how I say that. Change myself.
People only change on their own accord.
Yeah.
And I'm not changing anyone. I'm just kind of providing some clarity and direction. But people all only change on their own accord, and it's everyone's individual journey. When you try to forcefully change people, it always backfires.
They don't want to. They don't want to change. Yeah. They're addicted to
and that's suppression in some way already, right? And they're already suffering because they were told what to do way too many times.
Yeah. I've found a lot of people who are suffering. If I try to give them practical, just from a place of like, I know it's hopeless, but just from a place of just love, I try to give them practical methods to perhaps change the circumstance. They don't want to hear it because deep down they're addicted to. I still am addicted to suffering because it's
well, it's a harsh way to put it. You could put it this way, yeah, because deep down they're addicted to suffering. But I think a much more charitable way to put it is that deep down they're afraid of change because that is what they know. Their life as it is what they know, and even though there might be a kind of a better way to live, right? It is unknown, and it carries a risk of feeling. And actually, it's true. Even the enlightenment process gets you exposed to feeling your suffering. So they kind of, the tragedy of the ego is that it tries to minimize pain. It's afraid of pain. It tries to minimize pain, but because it's not possible. Emotional pain and things like that. Because it's not possible, in its trying to minimize pain, it perpetuates pain. You see? Because it's like a good example is that if you're afraid of if you're constantly paranoid, if you're anxious attached, and you're afraid that your partner will leave you, you will be very suspicious, you will push away the partner, you will be jealous, and stuff. You will increase the chance of that happening. So in the similar example in how we treat ourselves and others, even like if you're an individual who's prone to anger, and you have angry outbursts when someone like insults you or something, right? Then the reason that you really want to control this other individual very aggressively is because anger is very difficult for you, and you hope that by showing your own anger, you will fix this individual so that they'd never make you angry again. But it's delusional because, first of all, it doesn't work. But secondly, even if it does work, if you scare them into submission to be very careful, they're just one individual. So someone else will make you angry. So it tries to kind of it tries to minimize its pain, and that's why they don't want to, right? So because change is difficult, change is painful. You kind of have to be ready for it, and that's why a lot of people who stumble into spirituality are, quite frankly, very desperate. They're at the end of the rope. They can no longer play this game.
Yeah, it's to be honest, I don't really have much to say. I have exhausted everything I've wanted to say.
That's all right. Thank you very much, my friend.
It's okay. It's great to see you.
I'll speak to someone else. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. All right, Dag. Hi. I cannot hear anything you say. You're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry. Hi. I've one thing before I forget. I don't know if Max is still listening in, because he said he was from Germany, and I don't know if he's part of the server. There's other people from Germany here. I am And we have had like meetups and retreats in Germany too with one of the other mentors on the server. So that might be a chance. Just quickly.
Beautiful. Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing it up.
So I've had a rough couple of days lately, and one of the things that started to come up was this. It's hard to really put the essence of it even into words. It's got something to do in the vein of there's this question that comes up internally, and that is something deeply asking, like, why would people that love me hurt me, and why would I love people that have hurt me? And it's a very it's something I'm currently grappling with, because it seems to me as if it's almost inevitable that others will behave towards me in ways that could be hurtful again. And it's also still also a fact that I do love people around me. The people that are close to me, I do love them. So it seems like a very intense predicament that has come up, and it seems very, very ancient, very old.
Yes, it is.
From a very deep young age, like where there's no definite question in here. It just seems it seems like a very profound and very, very, very painful thing.
It is. It is very profound. I even once described the rejection of one's own newborn baby as the original sin. But there is nothing. There's no greater hatred and violence that comes from the rejection of one's own child. So, to answer your question, they hurt you because they were hurt themselves. And so, and of course, you can say, well, who hurt them and why they were hurt and how did it all start, right? But that would be like the extent of what I can say. What you probably know when you intuit, and that's also why people see their own past lives, is that this has been going on for a very long time. And so the parts, I just want to finish commenting on what you said. The parts of them that hurt you did not love you. When you're hurt and you want to control, possess, punish another individual, that's not love. You may be extraordinarily confused and even try to brainwash them into thinking that it's love. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of parents do to their children. And that's why the minds are so confused. That's why there's a lot of craziness and madness in the mind, but it's not love. It doesn't mean that they did not love you at all. And that's why it is possible to love them back, right? And we can forgive the pain, and we can forgive ourselves and forgive them and love them, even with this part of them that actually does not love us, and sometimes even looks at us in a very kind of condescending or even hateful way, or at least in the way of judgment and the way of not being enough. So as usual, it's both. There's both love and there is judgment and condemnation and hatred. And it's yes, it is very difficult to come to terms with, especially because we're told in the society that that's love, that like, parental love or some other love that you might be referring to is like the purest love there is. And if you don't appreciate that it's love, then there's something wrong with you.
That's such
You
a
know, how
bullshit.
can you not love your parents all the time? You know, it's actually a very well hidden, tremendous abuse. So you will slowly open your heart to yourself for having suffered through that, and for your parents and whomever else you might be referencing for also hurting you. Because ultimately, just like it's not your fault you were hurt, it's not their fault they were hurting. And I'm sure you hurt many people too.
Yes, it's the question. When I asked this question, it was almost rhetorical because intellectually I am aware of the things you said. It was more that I think it started to come up um, for the first time in more in an emotional way.
That's
As
good.
in it's just it's I don't know, it's just like a persistent scream internally that just like a I don't know, I can't even describe it more.
Yeah,
It's really
I know
interesting.
that's good. So when it starts to come up in the emotional way, that's when it starts. That's when the real kind of work on the resolution starts to happen. So give the scream a voice. Like if it's quiet and it's just, you know, something inside you that is screaming, that's absolutely normal. You may spend a lot of time like this, but you can also, if the situation allows for
Yeah.
it, right? You can also shout. You can also kind of show your anger in express your anger
Yeah.
in not in destructive ways, but yeah, that's how it goes for many people,
Yes.
my friend.
Yes. I have done that. It has started to express itself. It's just
Good.
that thing is it's massive. It's massive that
Yes, and
that rift. It really feels like a rift because of this simultaneous awareness of I think somewhere being aware that these people do love me, somewhere knowing it that they also do, and it goes both ways. That I'm also aware that I do love them, or also towards others, and also there being all this rejection,
Yep.
abuse, and I see it in myself so many times. Like one of the biggest defeats that I feel that I had to admit to myself was when I felt like I don't know if I can actually love anyone. I don't know. It seems like I don't. It seems like I'm incapable of it
Well,
in a way.
ego can't love anyone, but you can.
Yeah.
So I want to speak to some other people, my friend.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we
Yes.
there are. So
There's
thank you very much for commenting, and thank you for coming.
yeah.
Okay, so before I speak to some other people, I would like to ask you to likes and subscribe and share this video. We are looking for help with growing our community. I would also like to invite you to our Discord server over here, so everyone can join. I'm posting it as comments on both platforms. Also important, please support our work if you like what I do. If you have benefited from my writings or my videos, you can submit a one-time or monthly donation. We're still very far from the ability to sustain myself financially from what I do, so every little bit helps. And ultimately, if you wish to work one-on-one with me, where we can go into some deeper aspects of the psyche and of the suffering, you can schedule a one-on-one session here. And as I mentioned, you can also come visit me. Okay, so let's see. So we have Tyler, Max, and Bojan. So we'll start with Bojan. Hey, can you hear me? Hi.
Sorry, the camera is going to be a bit shaky because I'm on a charger, but so essentially, I guess what you talked about previously very much relates to what I wanted to talk about also.
With Dag?
Can you repeat?
With Dag?
Yeah. So essentially, I did want to, like the previous topic of how you made yourself. I'm simply a reflection here, right? So I guess that relates to like having guilt about how you're supposed to love your parents, regardless of how they treat you. Right?
Yes, that's a very common one. Yes, very common one, and that's bullshit. That's an unrealistic expectation, and it's not even guilt; it's shame. It's kind of we internalize that because. So first of all, we abused, and then we said, but we're supposed to love our parents, and then there's a kind of hidden threat in that. So like, if you don't love the parents, we're gonna get punished. That's not love. That's why the God of the Old Testament is such an abusive motherfucker, because actually it was written from the man's image, not the other way around. If you don't love me, you'll go to hell. By the way, I love you. That's absurd.
Or I guess you will pay in some way also.
What?
Or you will pay.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes. Say you love me, or you will pay. No wonder we grow up crazy.
But what does I guess all that, because there is an element like I know something, right? There is always, I don't know how to describe it, but there is always an element of I know, hence I do something about it.
Because you see, on some level, you've always known, right? So you have, like, what happens, how the ego forms is you kind of decide to run away from it all temporarily, because when you are a child in this hateful society, and if you're in an abusive family, it's even worse, you need to conform to survive, because you're small, you're like very small, you cannot feed for yourself. So you kind of escape from it all into this artificial identity that exists to please the adults. But on some unconscious level, because you are doing that for your own survival, on some unconscious level, you always know that you've been mistreated. You always know that you haven't been cared for in the right way, that you haven't been unconditional love. On some level, you know. And so then there are always these two aspects on the spiritual journeys. One is like jumping into the unknown, uncharted territory, and another is remembering what has always been true.
So I guess then the higher issue than that, which I often tend to refer to as a certain deity, right, is also the thing which we talked about the original sin, which has to do about like being rejected or something, or feeling rejected. And I guess I did like a day or two ago, I kind of touched on that issue. I don't know if I managed to do that correctly, but what came out of it was like an extreme amount of, I don't even know if it's anger, if it's some
Rage.
kind of, it's like indescribable, because a part of me ends up liking it.
I know. I mean, that's why people kill each other. It's indescribable. Yeah. That's not only why people kill each other, but it's also people commit suicide. This rejection is connected, this deep rejection is connected to a lot of anger. And that's what you see like in your meditation trips, where like I killed this person, They're basically just the mind's vengeful fantasies, like the anger, the rage, like you mistreated me, I want my revenge. So it's it's not like then there's the illusion is that it's very scary to go there, because if you go there, then you go to start doing crazy stuff. Well, the reality is it works the opposite way around. So people who do crazy stuff, they suppress it until they no longer can. And the more you feel it, the more you allow yourself to feel this anger and rage and resentment, the less likely you do something stupid about it. But it's a lot. Yeah, it can be a lot. It was a lot for me. Really a lot.
It's very difficult to ask a question about it.
There's not much that you can ask about it and receive an answer which will make it easier to experience it. The only thing I can say is that it's temporary. It will pass. All you need to do is just witness the mind story and feel the things. It's not dangerous. Kind of have faith and persevere. That's the only thing that I can say. I can just reassure you, but it's not much. It's not like I can explain it away.
I do have another question.
Sure.
So, I guess I'm a bit interested also in like, if you know the Hindu Vishnu avatar Kalki, which is supposed
again?
Hindu Vishnu avatar Kalki, which is supposed to be like the source avatar, like source emotion source thing, like the first thing which.
I have not heard that name or term before. No.
It's supposed to relate to like a certain thing related to some sort of a joke and something about being a friend, I guess, which is something that I heard about. I guess it correlates to the Buddha, to the Maitreya Buddha of the.
Okay. So is it a person or a state of consciousness, or what is it?
You see, my experience with it is that it's kind of like confused, you know. It's kind of something to do with being a human, I guess. I don't really know.
Well, I don't know much about it either. But you are human. You're always human. I mean, the one of the things in the mind is that the ego, this artificial persona, this role. I mean, it thinks that it's human. Actually, it's not. The totality of you is human. So you'll always be human and remain human, even if at times it feels like you transcended your humanity. You only transcend the ego. But I can't say much else because I don't know the story. Okay, my friend, we don't have much time. Is that okay if I speak to someone else?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for coming, and I'll speak to you next week. All right. Bye. Okay, Max. Hi.
Hi.
Hello, my friend.
Did you have a safe trip back?
Yes.
Yeah? Good. Katya is okay?
Yes.
Cool. I was on silent retreat this week, and on the Zoom, and it was very powerful, very good. So I wanted to share with you what happened a little bit. So I feel much, I try to, as you said, bring the awareness inside the body, stop being so much out. And yeah, it feels good, I'm very happy. I'm not scared of the sensations anymore. And instead of, like zooming out, I try to get in it, so to speak, with care,
Okay.
but
with love and with gentleness, but yes.
Yeah, with gentleness, but you have to do it, because otherwise it's I'm a bit impatient, so I was like, let's get on with it, and and sometimes it's good when it explodes a bit, from time to time.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is certainly pleasure and intensity.
Yeah. because I was so much. I'm a very, I used to be very try to control the emotions all the time and stuff like this. So usually when it comes out pretty strongly. But it was a good retreat. I agree with you that Adia is now that I went on retreat, I can say that is further than. I mean, it doesn't matter. But like we said when we talked, is further than
most
Teja. Like he's further on the path than, for example, Teja. But when I wasn't meditating, when you don't meditate, you lose this clarity also. And it's difficult for me sometimes to know, should I meditate or should I stop? And this question in my mind is very. I don't have. I'm very. I think like truth must be an extreme. It must be an absolute, right? So if if I am to reach there, you have to take absolute measures. You cannot.
Well,
it's not
yeah.
like half. I don't buy it. So either
what
we
Osho
have
once said, risk everything for awareness. It's really the ultimate game.
Right. So I don't buy it anymore. You don't. If you don't practice, you will attain the same thing that, for example, you are at or Adyashanti. I don't buy it.
Most likely not. It would just take too much time. So
Yeah.
so people like, strictly speaking, it is true, right? So you can, but for most people, it's just too slow. If you don't push yourself out of your comfort zone, if you don't practice, if you don't go to retreats, if you don't speak to other masters, like challenge your understanding, try to challenge theirs, if you don't meditate, like the people in your life can only do so much. So I've known personally people who are like 75 years old, and they say that their awakening happened like when they were 25, and they're from my perspective, like they're this like very beginning level of the dream that I described as the soul and the body relating to other people as as energy. So they haven't even reached Satsangs yet. They of course think that they're enlightened, but it's been like 50 years. So so yes, for most people, if you don't practice, if you don't meditate, you stagnate. The people who don't stagnate, they have the intent for truth, not like for feeling good or like being good, but the intent for truth, and this intent themselves usually lead them to more and more curious exploration, to more experience with different forms of practice. So that's the most important difference. So the deeper you go, the harder it is to stop. But on the beginning level of the unfolding, it's very easy to stop. Very easy.
Okay. I think I'm very close to something, and I will take more time.
We'll see.
Sorry.
We'll see.
Yeah, this eternity thing I'm starting to live now, and I'm seeing that that's also not real, as you said, once in your writing, and people are starting to communicate back with me, because before they just stop talking to me. When you're in that space of like, nothingness or whatever, people just ignore you. I don't know why. They don't speak to you, like you don't exist. And I feel like I was. Maybe I was dead for a long time. I don't know, but so I don't know. I think I'm getting closer, very close, and it's so simple. It's not even like being nothing. It's even simpler than being nothing.
It's even simpler than that. Yeah, it's such ultimately it's just being human. But it's very simple. But the depth of conditioning and the depth of pain that the mind carries is significantly underestimated in the vast majority of modern spirituality, and it's also significantly normalized. So that's basically the only difference. All right, thank you, my friend. It was good talking to you. I can see that you're kind of more relaxed.
I'm in the zone.
Before it's good. It's wonderful. It's really good to kind of observe your continued transformation towards peace and equanimity and love. So it's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Bye-bye. So then we have Tyler. Tyler?
Hello.
Oh, hi, Tyler.
How's it going, Artem?
Good, thank you.
I don't know if I had a question, but I just wanted to talk to you because it's been a long time.
Let's schedule a one-on-one session because it's been already in 1 hour and 35 minutes and I'm about to wrap up. So if you just want to talk to me, schedule a one-on-one session with me and let's talk, because I can only give like 5 minutes to you now, tops.
The thing I wanted to mention was I just wanted to mention the topic of stress and specifically as it pertains to the way the body responds to stress. I've found that it's really difficult for me to not get lost in the thoughts that accompany this stress, and I don't know what to do.
Practice. So every time you catch yourself get lost, that means you notice it by something outside. Like when you're really lost, you don't know. So every time you realize, you acknowledge, like in meditation, or even if you're stressed and you kind of sit down, you don't have to close your eyes, but pay attention to what's going on inside of you in the inner experience. So if you, every time you notice that, oh, I'm lost in this train of thought, I continually thinking about the stress, that's an opportunity. At this point of time, you have the freedom. That's an opportunity to direct your attention into something else. So at this point of time, become interested. How do I experience the stress in my body? Is it really as bad as I think? Is it really too difficult for me to feel? Let me carefully explore that.
I've found that I want to take a step away from the thoughts because the thoughts are becoming really
that's the
tight.
direction to take. You only have two directions, and first is to take. So you see, the reason you don't like the thought is not because the thought itself is evil. The reason you actually don't like the thought is because you feel shitty at the time. If you felt great and you had stressful thought, you would be like, but you wouldn't really care. So you have stressful thought and you also feel very shitty. The illusion is that the thought is the problem. You need to step away from the thought. But you can only do it in two ways. You can step away from the thought into something neutral, like breath. So then every time you notice that you're in the thought, you can take your attention to the breath. You can rest there for some time, but it's not going to actually resolve the underlying pain, the underlying issue. Or you can step away from the thought into the actual sensation itself that makes the thought difficult. The question is, what am I feeling that I really don't like? When these thoughts come up, what am I feeling and where is it? Like, for example, I become anxious and nervous. Well, how? Where? Exactly. Does my stomach like crunches, or do I feel like some energy in my chest, or do I start shaking? Like, and explore that in a very bodily, direct, immediate way, basically.
Yeah.
So that's all you can do. You can practice both. You can practice kind of going into some neutral anchor, or you can practice go into the difficulty itself. Ultimately, you will need to go into the difficulty itself, and don't try to stop the thought. The only thing that you're doing is that you're exploring what the thought creates. So the thought will kind of run in the background. The thought is actually an opportunity to explore how it feels right now. You see? So on this path, you need to learn to feel more and more of yourself. So the thought gives you an opportunity. If that's an anxious thought, then it's an opportunity to explore how you feel the fear, right? Or if it's a humiliating thought, then how does humiliation feel? Like, you will find as you practice it in meditation and in life that none of those feelings are as difficult as you think they are.
I'm finding that
Oh, I'm sorry, my friend. I will have to. Let's do one more video because it's been already 1 hour and 40 minutes. I don't have much time left, unfortunately. That's all I can do. Sorry about that. So next time, okay. So either schedule one-on-one meeting with me, or the next time I see you on the satsang in a couple of weeks, then I'll remember to put you first.
I'll schedule a meeting with you.
Yeah. All right. Bye, my friend. Okay, so that's it. So we have. So I have a few comments I will address, and then I'll wrap it up. Holmes says, I had paralysis from only 1 gram of shrooms. I don't know if it's this thing called wood lovers paralysis or related to serotonin. Though I did cubensis, I don't know what this is, and not wood lovers. Oh, those are different species of mushrooms, which is weird. Have you had any? I actually had paralysis first time without shrooms, but I'm pretty sure it's related to mushroom use. Well, first of all, if you're concerned about serotonin, I mean, make sure that you're not on antidepressants or any kind of other pharma. With regards to paralysis, I mean, I have not heard, like, you can get into a meditative state when you literally stop feeling your body. It actually doesn't mean the body isn't there. If you're talking about like paralysis with your eyes open, then most of the time what is happening is that you're just not feeling your body, you're just not aware of your body, and maybe you're scared and it's like, oh, my body isn't there, my body is there. But if you actually try to move your body, it will move. It's even the case with DMT, which is like much stronger than shrooms. Like even if you kind of in this spaciousness of consciousness where there is nobody, there's like literally nothing. Like if someone touches your body, you will feel it. It's just that your attention is on something else entirely. So I don't know if that is something that you mean, or if you actually had paralysis, like you couldn't move your leg, and if you wanted to, like, I would take a baseball bat and like, and you would like still keep lying, even though everything inside of you would be screaming that you need to get up. I don't know. That paralysis is, I think, quite difficult to get to on shrooms. So I'm not sure which one you mean. It's a difficult question to answer without details. And then Nicholas says, Artem, you've mentioned that being in the enlightened or natural state leads to clearer mind and heightened senses. Yes. And you've observed changes in your dietary preference because of it. Precisely. Such a certain food you once enjoyed now tasting unpleasant. Yes. I'm curious, have you noticed any other shifts in your preferences and behavior, especially as related to basic health topics like patterns of sleep, water consumption, movement, and environment? Yes. All of it pretty much, especially in movement. I started walking a lot. Environment, yes. So I'm kind of much more, I noticed much more the outside temperature, kind of smells. So all of it. So you can actually pretty much apply it to all senses. And unfortunately, I don't have the time to go into detail about it today. So, and then finally, Tadej Leva said, I also experienced nothingness, and I also noticed people don't want to talk to me. Why is that? Because maybe you're like a walking corpse or something. Like there's too much emptiness in you. Or maybe you scare people with like, or maybe constantly try to point people to nothingness, and maybe or maybe you're just difficult to relate to because like people ask you what you like and you're like, nothing, I don't care. I don't know. It could be like something weird in your experience, or it could be something kind of legitimate that people are afraid of. So it's hard for me to say, but I also don't know what to talk with them because the mind is so quiet. So what do you do with this? Well, don't talk to them then. I mean, talk to them about how quiet your mind is. I don't know. I mean, you're asking me such strange questions. What do you do in this bit? I don't know. Go around and scare everybody. Just come to a person and start staring him into the eyes without saying any word. See how long this lasts. How fun it would be. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I get the funniest questions. Okay, Holmes says, I could move, but that's what I thought. I could move, but I didn't want to. It was, yes, I knew that. It was partial paralysis. Only hands and legs were stiff. I could move my hands for shoulder, for example. Okay, good. So don't scare my audience, please. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you for this moment of laughter at the end of it. So it's been 1 hour and 45 minutes. I'm about to wrap up. I'm a little tired. So cool. See you all 2 weeks from now. And schedule sessions, come to my retreats, or just, post stupid shit on Discord, whatever lifts your boat. So best of luck to you on the spiritual path. Love you all. Bye.